All right, I bet you're looking at this
Great.
trailer, everyone.
Do you work in LA? Great. My name's Nicole. What's your name?
James.
Hi, James. Nice to meet you. And what do you do, James?
We run a culinary art program, so we do culinary art classes and student and family component.
Where's this?
Program curriculum provision. We're in LA.
What's
It's
it called?
around Common Threads.
Common Threads. Okay, I know you guys.
Yeah, we're nationwide as well, so
Very cool.
yes.
Awesome.
So,
Awesome.
so we do little gardening work here and there, partner with organizations like yourselves or schools and whatnot that
Well, we're starting.
have
We've gotten approved to start a culinary program, part of our horticultural elective in Watts next year at Markham Middle School, which is the only middle school in Watts.
Right.
Public.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in joining forces, and I think we've spoken before, but nothing transpired.
Okay, let's do
In
it.
fact, I know we did. You were supposed to come out and visit.
We were.
Your
We
board
just
member
we
came.
could never nail it down. Yeah.
Well, your board member took it over, the conversation here, the LA board member. I don't know if she's working with you anymore. She's blonde.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about?
It might have been Allison Lee. We rebooted the board like as early as last year. Like we're really in the reboot phase too. So probably it's Allison Lee. But yeah, I'm just trying to think of the other board members. Because after our first iteration of the board was on my plate, and then that got scrapped and taken off. So I'm not even sure who they had. But yeah, and I knew I was interested because at first I saw you loud and kind of last year. But I don't know if you recall when we talked, I live in Watts. So
Yeah.
the fact
So
that
let's come to the school. I mean, I'm there. We're there 3 times a week. I'll be there tomorrow if you want to meet me there tomorrow.
I guess we're ready.
I'll be there on Friday again.
Do you want me to stand over the
I'm
mic?
going to be there next week. Let's just
You know, we're
come
gonna have
over
to
and
do
see what we're doing.
this
We've got an
microphone
acre
that's right
property.
here.
Our son is planting.
We're just going to take it off the stand and point it at the.
We're starting horticulture.
I'm going to turn it down.
Our horticulture
last
is
one.
already
Well,
going. We're
it
adding
won't
more
reach.
next year. And if it's not you, it's going to be somebody else. Period. End of story.
We're going to start in a second. We're going to show you a little clip from a movie that just released in Los Angeles and all over the country. It's very tied into the theme of the farm-to-table movement, and it's amazing how this movement has just grown and grown and grown in the last 10 years particularly. The movie is one of the movies that my company has worked on. It's called The Biggest Little Farm. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's here in LA and ArcLight and Hollywood and Landmark and everywhere. And it's about Apricot Lane Farms, which is a beautiful farm up in Moore Park, which is 40 miles north of here. The farm was like, the soil was terrible. They couldn't get anything to grow. And over 8 years, they turned it into a wonderful regenerative farm. So John is going to play the trailer. If we have a kind of a primitive setup here because my computer died, so I wasn't able to do it. So he miraculously and heroically did kind of a jerry-rig thing, so I hope it works. So, and Nick, you're going to hit play. Go ahead. The Biggest Little Farm. Oh, that sound. John, are we going to get this?
But there's no sound coming out. Oh.
Okay, we're going to start it. Can we start it again?
Sure, we can do whatever you want.
You're very good at this technical stuff.
Done a few of these
You're
myself.
good in the showbiz.
Sorry about the noise. I'm just trying to reach it down. Okay, let's see.
I believe the audio is coming up with
This all started with a promise that we'd leave the big city and build a life in perfect harmony with nature,
Did anybody hear it or not?
like a traditional farm from the past.
Okay, I guess it's just,
speakers over here. So
Molly and John are very happy about this.
We're going to try this one more time. We're going to, third time's the charm.
This all started with a promise that we'd leave the big city and build a life in perfect harmony.
all right, I don't think this is going to work. So anyway, go try to see this film. You could see in the photos.
I
This,
think we could just watch it without the sound.
yeah, it was a dead farm. This is what it looked like. These are the filmmakers. The reason that they started the farm was because this dog was barking in Santa Monica, and they got kicked out of their apartment. So they decided to fulfill their dream and start this amazing farm. And now we got something else. All right, so
What?
never
Just
mind.
happened.
But I really encourage you to see it. I just have to give you a little
It was
tidbit.
really weird.
Just stop it.
Oh no, it's here, it's here.
There it is, dogs and sheep. The thing is, all the animals on the farm interact with each other. They have roosters, they have a pig who gives birth, they've got chickens, they've got ducks. This guy used to shoot for Oprah, so he's like a Nat Geo photographer, and all the shots are extremely gorgeous. And they turn this desert, really, into a total regenerative farm that not only can you see the movie, but you can go, oh yeah, they had a lot of problem with pests, and they refused to use pesticides. They wanted to keep it organic and regenerative. So they found out that all these pests have a reason, even the coyotes and the snails and the ducks. The ducks, and they almost had to leave their farm because of the fire that was here recently. And, that wasn't just one of their problems. Here's the pests, and then their big pig got sick, and the coyotes were killing the chickens. And anyway, Alice Waters loves the movie, and so does everybody else. I just have to tell you a tidbit that actually, here's a beautiful egg. They sell their eggs at the Santa Monica Farmer Market. I tell you, they sell like hotcakes. They're like $19 a dozen, but you can't get them because people line up very early to get them. Here's all the wonderful quotes. I wish you could hear it, but you can go see it.
When does it come out?
It's out now. It's out now in the Landmark, the ArcLight, all over the Valley, New York, Los Angeles, and I just have to tell you that it beat the Avengers per screen average. It had a higher per screen average than the Avengers did that opening weekend. So people are really caring. It's optimistic. It's not doom and gloom. It's gorgeous, and it's a good setup for this panel, which is about the farm-to-table movement, because everybody on this panel is growing food, and they're working in their communities to make their communities a better place through food. And we're going to introduce each one of them, and can everybody hear me okay? All right, so first we're going to introduce Melissa. No, Melissa's not here yet, okay. So we're going to talk to Nicole Landers, who we know each other from the past. And Nicole Landers is the co-founder of the Community Healing Gardens here in Venice. And she's worked there, she's worked for more than 2 decades. She's been an environmental advocate and a human health advocate. And her mission is to guide the next generation into meaningful action. So first we're going to hear from Nicole, and I want to hear more about community gardens and how you think it fits into the farm-to-table transformation.
Thank you so much for having me, Susan. And this film is really important. And I just wanted to give it a plug that if we don't use regenerative agriculture methods, our food systems will break down and we won't have a proper ecosystem to eat in America.
Right.
So if you don't understand what that is, and how many here understand what regenerative agriculture is? So we get a show of hands. Okay, so maybe half the room. So for the other half, it's farming in a total eco-friendly way, using no pesticides, returning everything back to the soil, which is, if you think about your soil, the soil in the planet as your bank account, everything we take from the soil, we have to put back into the soil. Does that make sense? So you are creating a layer above the soil that's constantly being turned over in a healthy manner, where you're creating good carbon and getting rid of the negative carbon. Does that make sense? So nothing goes to landfill, not a scrap. And the animals are needed and the pollinators are needed so that all of that stays intact and keeps flowing. And it's also turning ranchers into being more mindful about how they raise cattle and so forth, and chickens and all of that. So I wanted to share that because I saw a lot of eyes what does that mean? And I think that we have to break it down in baby steps so that we can all understand, because I didn't understand. And going back to school and doing the work has helped me to understand. So backing up to go forward, I started in entertainment. And hence why I'm here, because, and Tiffany, who's on our board of our nonprofit, said, you should speak at this. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. And now I know why I'm here, because, we're talking about we're at Digital Hollywood, and we're talking about how the entertainment and storytelling crosses over important things like this. So if you think about it from a storytelling perspective, and the narrative is really talking about how we get food to our plate that's healthy, nutritious for everybody. Farm to table means everybody should have access from the farm to the table, not just people that can shop at Whole Foods or Erewhon's, which takes your whole paycheck. That's what I'm doing. That's what I've created with my team. So Community Healing Gardens is all about building community through urban agriculture and really looking at it from the perspective of the lens of, we have sun here most of the time, and how do we use that to harness the things that we need? So what's the one thing that binds us all together? I can't hear you. We all eat. We all need food, right? Food and water, shelter, basic human rights. So do you know how many people don't have access to healthy food? 1 out of 3 kids in LA don't have access to healthy food. And their parents. Right? It's systemic. So you and I can all walk out of here and go to Trader Joe's and Whole Foods and Erewhon's and our farm-to-table restaurants. But if you go 10 miles from here in a city like Watts, which is part of LA, you will see that there's very little healthy options of food. How many of you have ever been to Watts? There you go. And am I right in what I'm saying? And it's in our city. So shouldn't it be everybody's problem here to figure out how do we get there? And how do we turn this ship around and make everybody have access to a farm-to-table lifestyle? I mean, it's pretty simple to me. So Community Healing Gardens started as building a community of urban farmers and communication around food in Venice. So I saw the need in my own community to include everybody because my neighborhood was becoming uninclusive. And I live in the land of the have and the have-nots. And that was upsetting to me. So I was like, wait a minute, there's a 99-cent store and a Whole Foods side by side. So what's that story? What's that narrative? And how did we get there? And so I looked around with my friends and we saw that there was no plots of land that we can take to start a community garden, and community gardens always have memberships and it costs a lot of money. But what about parkways? So a la Ron Finley, who here knows Ron Finley, or the story of the gangster gardener, well, he started a movement all about growing food in open parkway spaces. So we looked around and we saw that we had a lot of open parkway spaces in Venice, in the Venice Oakwood area mostly, which is where the last part of the gentrification of Venice ensued. And this was in 2015, and we saw that we could legally grow food. So we did it. 55 garden boxes are still standing 3 years later. We have programs in Venice with the St. Joseph Center, which is a center that helps transitioning men and women back into society and their families. And then we work with kids, 5 to 8-year-olds in the community of Venice at the Oakwood Rec Center, and we're part of their after-school program. And we pay for this. We pay to be a part of the after-school program. They don't pay us. There's no money. And snack time is usually fake cheese and crackers or whatever. But now we're making kale chips because we have 11 boxes at the Oakwood Rec Center, which is an LA Park and Rec, which was hard to break into. So we went to the rec center and said, can we do this? And they were hemming and hawing, and they finally let us in. And now we're changing things. We didn't ask permission. We just did it. So how many of you garden? How many of you want to garden? Come join us. We take volunteers, all ages, all sizes. No finances needed. You just show up. Well, no. Then we got led to Watts from a volunteer, and we have a urban farm growing food on the backside of the only public middle school with 700 kids. And there was a piece of dormant land living there with fruit trees, and we saw the need to change that. And it wasn't like we made a plan, it just kept showing up, and we kept showing up too. So it's like right time, right place, I guess you would say. So now we're turning things on its head one step further, and we're using clean technology both in Venice and Watts to grow food, courtesy of the Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator working with us. How many of you know about that? The Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator. So we have the largest clean tech incubator in the US right in our own backyard. It sits in the LADWP building, and on Fridays they give open tours for free. Clean tech, environmental technologies that help us in water, waste, transportation, and they're really pushing hard on the food side. And they also talk about cannabis if you're interested in that topic.
Let's move on, because we want to get back to the technical.
I just wanted to share a little opening.
No, I think
Done.
that's great, and I think the whole idea of using technology is something we really want to talk about. And I'm just going to skip over to Sabina right now, because we're talking about working in underserved communities. And Sabina is the CEO of SEED, which is focused on social justice, equity, and community development issues in urban communities. So if you could just talk a little bit more about SEED and what it's doing in the farm-to-table movement and in the community, and how it's into sustainable regenerative ag.
Yes. Can you hear me? Yes. Thank you all for being here. Yeah, we actually, SEED is a for-profit benefit corporation, but it has its origins in a 20-plus year nonprofit called Home and Community that I founded, that is working out of South Los Angeles, Cuba, and Congo to help low-income people and people in developing communities have better access to food. And so what we started doing was working with groups to grow at their sites so that they could sell at the farmer's market. And one of the things that we realized is that we needed to bring an entrepreneurial piece into the program so that people were able to sustain themselves, sustain their gardens. So any overages they'd be able to sell so that they could just sell more, and we were being very productive on site at people's homes, parkways. And the SEED project came out of that using Arduino microcontrollers and microprocessors. We worked with some folks at Google to develop an automatic irrigation system, which is what we brought into Cuba to test. And we were helping farmers there install those systems, and they became very productive, and we realized they're under drought conditions like we were for 5 years. We brought them back to South Los Angeles, and we had a lot of success. We have 2 farm sites now. One is called Harvard Farms. It's near Harvard and Exposition. And then we have one at Normandy and 54th Street. So SEED grew out of that because we realized one of the things that helps people have more productive gardens is watering properly and taking care of soil and monitoring that. And so we're actually a company that you mentioned, Lacey, LA Clean Tech Incubator. We're working out of the Advanced Prototype Lab there. And we have this prototype now that we're going to be beta testing at different sites so that we can have a one-for-one model whereby consumers that really want to help, they want to find some way to help with food security, maybe globally address that. But they also want to have in their home a watering device that they can monitor from anywhere in the world. A lot of people don't exactly have green thumbs. And so this gives them an opportunity to buy this, but a one-for-one mandate means that people in these other communities that we serve will also have access to this product and be able to be very productive. And we'll be introducing soil monitoring as well because of the regenerative soil issues that you just mentioned earlier. And that's what we're doing right now with SEED. And again, technology is a really big piece of this. And one of the ways that we get to sustainability is to introduce these extra levels of technology.
Thank you. And James also works in the community. He's with, James Bell is the Associate Director of Programs at Los Angeles Common Threads. And they have a unique approach to combating childhood obesity. Is that what you do? Tell us more about what Common Threads does.
Well, thank you, Susan. Initially, it was childhood obesity. That's the space and kind of our genesis with our founder, Chef Art Smith, our current CEO, Chef Art Smith's partner. The idea was it was a bit of a response to 9/11. And the idea being that after 9/11, of course, we saw how the human spirit collectively came together to rebuild. And Art Smith being out of Chicago, he and his partner Jesus saw that in New York and wanted to figure out a way in which they could use their skill set to help fight, to help the greater good. So the idea became, fighting childhood obesity, the idea of diabetes, those types of things. I think since then we've kind of grown to actually encompass all, or not all, but the idea of looking at more diet-related diseases, so not just childhood obesity, not just diabetes, cholesterol, those type of things. But what started as a response, and the response became, in its initial phases, a cooking class, so a 12-week cooking class in which kids in under-resourced and low-resource communities could actually eat their way around the world by cooking healthy meals from different countries. So to start with, like, the United States the first week, Mexico the second, Senegal the third, so on and so forth, has blossomed into not only cooking classes for students, but for families as well. Pre-K to 8th grade curriculum provision for teachers and out-of-school time providers. Garden Bites curriculum, so that's kind of where the overlap for us works, which is Small Bites as a health and nutrition component. We blew that out with a project in which we worked with Big Greens, which used to be the kitchen community, to really bring our nutrition knowledge together with their ability to show schools how to build and sustain gardens, to then have a Garden Bite curriculum. So our farm to table overlap really comes from that Garden Bite space, and not just solely. One of the ways we've seen that is to partner with organizations like, we are a founding member with, it's a school called Glen Feliz Boulevard Elementary over in Los Feliz. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with that, but they're the first, I think, and the only school for advanced studies with farm to table and a culinary art lens. And we're the culinary art provider, but we also support some of their garden work as well. So that's where we see a lot of our overlap, serving those communities to build the knowledge base, to then be able to go and support all these endeavors, or see where the synergy lies that we could still layer into what all these wonderful partners, our potential partners, are doing in the community, and building on top of that. So really that's how we come across it.
And I'm going to get to you last because you tie in, so I just want to get to Melissa first. Melissa is a former restaurateur, very successful, and now she's president of Culinary Arts Kids Eat, Cake, and they also enrich and educate youth on the importance of a healthy lifestyle. And Melissa, tell us more about what you do and maybe how it's the same or different from what we've just heard.
We're kind of a mashup, actually, of everything that's on the table, which is awesome. So I used to work in Beverly Hills, and then I opened a nonprofit in South Central, and I found balance in Hollywood. So taking that, I created and enriched the in-school program in an LAUSD high school in the Culinary Arts program. And then in 2015, we launched CAKE, Culinary Arts Kids Eat. And it's an after-school program where students grow their own food hydroponically. We also grow in the soil. The American Heart Association gifted us 20 raised beds. Irrigation is always a problem, and we're still working that out. But the students grow their own food and create a fresh, healthy recipe from the food that they've grown. And then they create a cookbook called From Our Hood to Yours. And they study health, wellness, nutrition, mindful meditation, stress management, yoga. And then we open up a pop-up farmers market, and the kids become social entrepreneurs. So it's this combination of what they're learning, the skill set that they're learning. We're feeling that a great idea actually would be that lunch is considered nutrition, and kids get a credit for taking that, right? And then LAUSD could purchase their food from local farmers. Wouldn't that be a great idea? So that's part of the reason we're staying in an LAUSD high school. Our students get 5 credits for taking the class, but we want them to get the 5 credits for having lunch that's just healthy and scratch food, and it's considered a nutrition. So we find that the kids are gaining knowledge and wisdom, on how life evolves by working with the soil, working with hydroponics, and growing their own food. They're gaining practical experience of becoming a farmer, even if it's a short time. So it's given our youth insights they might not have had before. So it's this consciousness that informs them on how they're going to connect to local farmers, organic foods, and become ambassadors of health to their families and communities.
Great, thank you. Okay, Trevor Hudson is the founder of In-House Produce, and he is very tuned into the digital Hollywood world. He used to be a former tech person, and you can tell us more about that. I still am a tech person. And In-House Produce, they provide the freshest produce possible for restaurants and households, and it's using technology. So could you just tell us a little more about what it does, and how do you think it could work with the groups that we've heard from thus far?
Yeah, absolutely. Our product really is a blend of technology and farm to table. When we got started, it was very existentially motivated around kind of bringing sustainability in together with healthy food. And we came up with this product. It's a automated hydroponic system that's part art piece, part high production vertical farm. So it goes right in a restaurant dining area and grows high quality specialty produce for chefs, and that's the freshest that you can possibly get it. Right now we've automated quite a bit of the process. Our irrigation is automatic, the lighting is automatic, and we're just kind of going step by step and making the user experience better and better for the chefs. They're our customer. Over the long term, we'd like to be in other food service establishments and then ultimately in homes at a later time.
Very good. Do you see yourself working with community groups, or how would you be able to work with groups like that are represented here today?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially around employment and training. Part of our model is we don't just sell our product. It's actually a subscription service. So when you opt in with us, you're getting a fully managed farm. That's really important to our customers because they just want fresh food. Right, so if we can pull from the community and train a group of farmers to go out and service these restaurants, they'll have a great job that's kind of a lot more less hard on people than working in a field, for example, and they'll probably get some nice food while they're in these fine dining establishments too.
Cool. Well, we're talking about tech. You're a tech entrepreneur, and I know Sabina and I were talking about she's very interested in tech in this whole area. And Sabina, she had said to me, we need to feed 10 billion people by 2050. How can we bring technology into the lives of billions of people and low-income communities especially to feed them efficiently and productively? And do you have an answer to that, or are you looking for answers from the panel?
I'm always looking for answers because that's a big question that no one's figured out. But that is going to be something that we have to address by 2050. These numbers, 9 billion people. And the way that we're looking at it is, we have a large number of people who are in lower income and developing communities in this 9 billion number. So how are we making sure that they're able to be productive and grow food where they are? And the soil health is a big part of that. And so what we're doing with this new part of our company is trying to make sure that folks in these communities have a means to water their plants automatically and also be part of the STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, being a part of that like big farms are. You can't just have these big farms coming into these communities and taking away the sovereignty of folks there. And so if you're able to grow on your own site, manage your own technology, we're using very simple microprocessors that are flexible and user-friendly. People can take that and expand in the ways that that larger industry groups are doing. And I think one of the key pieces of this is you talk about families in some of these developing communities. They're focused so much on just day-to-day subsistence. To have something automated that you can control and that's flexible and allows you to keep your even your soil, monitor watering. You're not out there every day having to navigate your site. If it's automated, you're able to go. Your kids can go to school. We're working in Congo on this right now, and you're allowing people to have a better life, more than just producing food. And so that's where we're looking at the technology to assist us.
Is anybody else on the panel using technology in your community gardens?
Well, I'm not using technology yet, but I think a great idea would be to take over abandoned buildings that are in every city and put in your hydroponic systems that are all, digitally connected, and you could set them up for handicap vets. You can, everybody could get to work, and we could grow food 3 times as fast hydroponically. So I think that idea could be put into motion pretty soon. We've got everything we need.
Yes, go ahead.
So first off, thank you for what you shared, because it is so important to understand the big picture, and I don't think that everybody computes that, and even I don't even always compute that, like how important. So I think something I got from all of us is that we're teaching the next generation on how to help us be successful in food systems. And these are all job tracks, these are all career tracks for these children, especially in underserved areas that don't have the ability. But when I was growing up, I had health ed, I had cooking as an elective, where I got, graded on it, right? So we just got a horticulture and culinary elective into Markham. That was really hard to do. It's like pushing through glass ceilings is pushing through, forget it, chiseled glass ceilings with LAUSD. But you're right, we have to get the food in the schools and the kids eating the food, because their brains are fried from all the crap that they're eating. So it's the gut and the brain that's not computing either, and that's why there's so many absentees in low-income areas. And if there's absentees with students in the classroom, nobody gets paid. So they get paid per head. And so on an average, kids are not going to school as much in these underserved areas for a multitude of reasons. And at our school, we already see an increase in lowering the absentee. Things are changing, things are shifting, but we are one of the top worst schools in LAUSD, the school I work at. We're number 3, and we're middle school. That's saying something. A very interesting conversation. And the other thing I just learned is that the testing and the way that we're given curriculum at this school is a lower grade level than what is expected from 6th to 8th graders. So we're not even getting proper education to these schools, because we're dumbing everything down so that they can pass. So when they get to college, they're still behind. So they're always behind. And we've set it up that way. Same thing with the food, it's always behind, right? So I think if we empower people to grow their own food any which way we're doing it, and collectively I think we should all work together, we're changing things. And if we mobilize together and we look at how we can all be, we become an army, right? And then it's not like a big problem anymore, because we're solving it.
That's a good point, working together, because
Yeah.
there's so many groups kind of doing similar things, and that brings up the idea of support, financial support, and going out there and looking for sponsors and benefactors and all that, and the challenges of that. Who would like to address that question?
I think that, we're here at Digital Hollywood. It would be great to have like a website that we could all connect on. It could be like a community where we could all, I've got this, you've got that, I've got a truck, okay? And let's pull together. There's no way, I don't know where to go if I need stuff. I have to go purchase it, or I have to go raise funds for it. So it would be great if like a new nonprofit was created that could set this up for us, or we could set it up together as a community.
It's a good point. As we had heard at the last panel, the Los Angeles Food Policy Council is a great, great organization, and they do a lot of work in underserved communities and, street vending and school gardens. So, I think it might be good for all of everybody who's interested in it to kind of get on the website. It's Good Food LA. Plug, they're having their big gala in June, and you're all invited. Yes.
They have monthly meetings, too.
Sorry?
There's
They have
monthly meetings that we can all
meetings
join.
with subgroups,
Roundtable
so that would be
discussions.
good to, does anybody work with
And it's
them?
open,
You
yeah.
want to talk about it?
So I've been to a few of the meetings, and there's an urban agriculture, group now, so it'd be great if anybody here is interested, they can come to that meeting as well. It's open, it's free to the public, and it's free to join. You can become a member. But I think that sometimes it works in smaller numbers for some reason. Like, what I found is I'm going to organizations that have gone before me to do this work and asking for support, and we're writing grants together. And we're just splitting funds. And we're finding ways to collaborate and make it work. Because I don't want to reinvent the culinary piece, so like working with Common Thread and going after grants together is going to change the status quo, right?
And I think, to your point, we've seen that across the board, this idea of collective impact, right? It can't be done in a vacuum. It can't be done alone. And it's not being done alone, but it's always been collaborative, or not always, but there's often been a lot of collaborative work, and now we're putting names around it, like the collective impact model, really showing where people fit, or different organizations have synergy around what they can do. So to your point, like LA Food Policy Council, it's not just around urban agriculture, right? I know I first got involved with them as part of this job, or got introduced, I should say, to them when it came to food justice. Like, that was one of the overarching things they did, neighborhood markets. So that is a great resource site to be able to go and see what is happening in the space of food justice, food insecurity, urban agriculture. And yeah, so that's like one of the convening spaces, aside from their convening meetings. But to your point about the collaborative efforts, that's the only way we move forward. I really see, when you were talking about just kids falling behind and being tested at a lower level, the idea of absences based on how they eat, where I see Common Threads really fitting in that, and where we fit in there is just really that education piece, where there'd be a training for teachers that we conduct, or a PD, the idea of really creating a foundation, right? Because some people will have more knowledge than others, even in your own community, but trying to have a baseline understanding of health and nutrition. I spoke of it's called Small Bites, our pre-K to 8th grade nutrition curriculum. And the idea being that, to your point, being so young, we try to catch them from pre-K all the way up to 8th, and routinely instill the same. All the themes are the same, but the content changes. So for example, if you're pre-K or 1st grade, you'll have a game called Slow, Woe, and Go, where they learn to actually just visually see, like, it might be orange ice cream is one of the foods that's coming to mind, and that's like a whoa food, right? Or there's like, it could be pizza, and that'd be a slow food. Then they have, like I said, they have the go foods because it's broccoli or something along those lines. So they're getting to two things. They're getting to be able to visually connect health and wellness and kind of lay that foundation from a young age. And then the other part is that curriculum itself has a snack component. So they're actually creating snack, and sometimes with pieces from their garden, sometimes with donations, to be able to, at a proper age. I wouldn't say a preschool kid, pre-K kid could do it, right? But 3rd grade, they can go home and create these healthy snacks.
That's right.
So the idea is working in conjunction with one another. You guys have the garden. We talked about trying to work with the culinary arts space. Really, if the idea is that you're in a space like an LAUSD, help to be champions of, right? Grant collaborations. Just all those synergies really connect when we look to collaborate. Yeah, so.
Right. Trevor, how do you see using technology in the schools and with these groups? How do you suggest, or what would your vision be of using technology to kind of boost the awareness, or boost what's happening, or help these groups to be more productive or reach more people?
Yeah, I think indoor agriculture is really unique because it both touches on the, acquiring healthy food and the STEM education. So, I can't think of a better program for fostering both healthy communities and, kind of the most, the education that's most in demand right now. Yeah, pretty much any of these programs that we've been talking about would be a step in the right direction.
Could kids use your system in their school to learn this?
Yeah, particularly culinary schools would be good because we do focus on those expensive, highly perishable crops. But these are things that will be, a really good addition to any culinary program.
Have you worked with schools at all in LAUSD or anything like that?
Not yet. I would love to, though.
Okay, well, we
what
can
if
hook
we
you
could?
up.
What if we could take a whole area of a school and put hydroponic towers in it and grow things like lettuce and things that we can serve daily at lunch? Wouldn't that lower the $1.25 we only get for each student?
Yeah, we can make that happen.
All right, well, let's do a pilot program.
Digital Hollywood, it happened here.
I mean, that's like a no-brainer, and I know Andrew, and we have a system in the classroom that we still need to set up, so maybe we take it to the next level.
Yeah, so before, we're going to go some questions now, because we have, I don't know if we need to go back, we can. Yes, what's your question?
I have two unrelated questions. The first one is, no one here has spoken about Rich LA. Are you guys aware of it?
Yes.
And they go to school, for those who
They've done a lot of schoolwork.
they go to schools and they plant gardens to
Yes.
teach kids how to garden throughout LA Unified School District.
Yes.
What's it, I'm sorry, what's it
Called
called?
Enrich LA.
Rich LA.
Oh, Enrich LA, yes, definitely.
I'm surprised no one spoke about that. I think it's an important element. The second thing is, has anyone seen the movie Evolution of Organic? It plays into some things that are in this trailer, which we couldn't see. But this trailer ends with the whole idea of using composting and how basically you can not solve it, totally make a huge.
Well, that's what regenerative agriculture is. Just to kind of go back to the conversation, and I think we all understand that up here and why. Sure.
The entire history is the evolution of organic from the 60s to now, and it's a huge,
Yeah.
award-winning documentary filmmaking.
Cool.
Yeah, I worked on Evolution of Organic with the director, so it's a wonderful film, and I recommend it to everybody. And the Biggest Little Farm takes that. There's a difference between sustainable and organic and regenerative, and I think everybody talked about, you talked about regenerative, but regenerative is like beyond organic. It's beyond sustainable. It's actually not trying to sustain what is, it's trying to bring it back, bring the soil back, put healthy stuff into the soil so it regenerates it. It's not just keeping things the way they are. But I highly recommend Evolution of Organic as well. And all these films, it's great that there's so much attention now coming to this world through Hollywood, or you call it Hollywood, and the digital world. So does anybody else have a question? Yes?
Well, I have a comment in regards to the LA City Council passing the Inland Parkway ordinance. Because of the ongoing effort of Florence Nishida and LA Greengrass, that ordinance got passed.
Absolutely.
Relations around it.
Yeah, no, that's how we were able to do the parkway gardening and
Can you
not.
talk a little bit more about what he's talking about?
You're talking about the city ordinance that was lifted to grow food in the parkways, correct? Yeah, so that's how we were able to get away with what we did. We didn't ask permission, we just did it because we saw that that ordinance had passed.
I was just saying, it's not only Ron Finley, it's the ongoing
Yes.
Florence Nishida and LA Greengrass.
And thank you for bringing that. But
She's
I
also
think-
at the National Natural History Museum. She works in their garden.
Yeah, she does. She's renowned. But I think why I mentioned Ron Finley was not the ordinance passing part. So I just kind of painted that picture so people understood what it was that we had done. But yeah, that is a very important piece, and thank you for sharing.
Ron Finley, if you don't know him, he's the gangster gardener. I don't know, he's got a huge TED following, and he's done quite a lot of work. And
He's just given it a lot of national attention, which I
yes,
think is so important.
He's good. He's a great guy. Anybody else have a question? All right,
There's
so
gotta
I
be a
have
question.
questions. So you work with kids, and are they hearing the same doom and gloom reports that we are about the end of the world as we know it? And are they worried, or are they optimistic? And how does what you do help them stay optimistic?
You're asking all of that?
I'll ask you first.
Okay, so do they know the doom and gloom? I think kids know what they don't have, and a lot of the kids I work with know, especially the turtle video with the straws in the nose. They show me that often. I don't think they look at it through a doom and gloom lens as much as you think, at least the middle school kids. They still have some bright-eyed, bushy-tail idea of what they want to see the world to be. It's giving them permission to be exploratory, be the best version of themselves. And working in a community like Watts, it's different. And they're not given the access or the permission the way maybe some of us have had our upbringing. And it's really enlightened me to see when you give a child a seed and they grow it into a plant, they just eat it. They eat everything, the arugula, the broccoli, everything. And so I think that looking at life through the lens like that and giving them permission to be whoever they want to be out in the world and relate it back to like, hey, we know we have water issues in communities like this. We know we have pollution issues. How are we going to solve them? And we talk through the lens of, let's have a challenge, let's talk about water, let's talk about trash, let's talk about these topics. So when we had the bad rains, we talked about watershed. When we have plastic pollution information happening right now pretty strongly, we talk about it. And I bring in guest speakers and we talk about career paths in these sections. So I think that, you know, that's what's important, is educating subliminally and giving permission.
Anybody else want to comment on that? Melissa?
Well, you know, we're living in frightening and fascinating times right now. And I see kids, my students are teens, and I see them battling depression, obesity, and diabetes, and these are preventable diseases. And I see what our program has been able to do for them. It engages them, it educates them, and empowers them. And I think that we've all been talking about education is so critical that if you get it at an early age, and if you engage the kids and you get them excited about what they're doing, and you show them what it's like to grow their own food, and they watch it, and then they create from it, man, they changes their mindset, and they go into the world with a bright outlook, and I've seen it happen in a semester. So this can happen. We can turn things around. We're at this strange point in our civilization right now, and now is the time. We've got to move from humans to humanity. We've got to leap in, and it's very possible. So it's exciting. I've seen it. I've seen the negative side of it, but I've also seen what we can do, and we can turn things around, and we can do it quickly.
James, do you have anything to say?
I was thinking about that. I think, well, from what I've seen, so we do work from, like I said, pre-K to 8th grade. So the closer you get to the adult level, you probably are more aware of doom and gloom, right? Because you critically think, you know, we were talking about this earlier, like even the idea of, and I'm talking for myself, being like, you know, looking, half my life is in the rear view, half is in the front, right? When you're younger, you're way more willing to take risks. You know, I don't think you realize your limitations. So to have everything laid out in front of you, I mean, there's not really another option but to be optimistic on some level that we have to figure this out because they still want to be here. So especially when it comes to pre-K, like first, second, you know, they're just looking forward. So if we, to your point, equip them with the ability to critically think as they get older and problem solve, and not just problem lament, not just stick and stay stuck in the problem, you start to see a shift in how things are done. You know, you start to see a shift of what can be done. You talk about STEM and STEAM. They now have a better toolkit with which to work with and operate out of. You know, so I do think that I've seen it, again, not from a gloom and doom perspective, but this is just what it is. How do we make it right? We start talking problem solving. But to your point, getting older, you start to internalize a lot more of these messages. And it seems to happen a little bit younger, that they're more aware of the outside world. But I do think if we catch them young enough, or I've seen, you give them tools to make better decisions and how to navigate to maybe make a world that lasts longer than what seems to be expected now.
Well, there's hope. So
There's always hope. It's how you create it.
Exactly. So I want to ask each of you before we wrap what your biggest success story and your biggest challenge is. Nick?
I think the biggest success story for us is we're building the first in the nation clean tech incubator urban farm with STEAM learning and also a media component and a culinary component. So it's a big thing, and we got the okay to do it through LAUSD and to pilot some of the things that we're doing with them. And to make it part of the curriculum was really important to us, and also have an after-school program. So we've tackled those things, and now it's the biggest challenge is getting it all moving in the right direction with support, both financial and human support, like physical support. So we're actually hiring right now people in Watts to support us. We have an internship program we're starting this summer with high school students in Watts, and we are working really hard to make sure that at least half of our jobs stay in Watts, with Watts locals, and that's important. And I think that looking at that lens is super, super important to us. So I would say our biggest challenge is financial right now.
Trevor.
Like most nonprofits.
So indoor hydroponics is really hard. We're just really happy that we were able to make a product that really works for our customers. You know, chefs are really busy, and we're happy that it's everything's functioning well, and that we're ready to take on more customers. I think our biggest challenge is communication. People have all sorts of things that they're interested in and that they champion. We really have to communicate this message that conventional agriculture is horrible and that we can do much better. That you can get fresher food that uses less water, no packaging. We have to communicate all that and also make it, so that it sounds like a feasible option for our customers.
Where can we eat now? What restaurants have your?
Scratch Barn Kitchen in Encino. It's pretty close to here. If you have $180 to spare.
Well, it all goes back to the extra goes back to LA Unified, right? For their school programs, right? From scratch?
Oh, I wish.
That's why they call it Scratch. Sabina, what's your biggest challenge?
Our biggest challenge has been getting into the global market in a way that makes good economic sense, because I'll first say our success was actually getting this prototype completed in a way that was efficient and economical. But getting into the global market, we used to be able to travel to Cuba, for instance, very easily with our components, and that's where most of our farmers are, and we're not able to get there right now. So what's happening is people are sort of left. Thankfully, they had training, so things are happening with that. But I think that's going to be our challenge, is getting back into the sites where we had been doing this really good and productive work. But in the meanwhile, we'll keep doing the work here, as we have been, and proving our concept so that when we are able to re-enter those markets, we'll be ready to go.
Thank you.
I think for us, as seems so often in my life at least, our challenges and success are like the same side, opposite sides of the same coin. When I started with Common Threads, I started as a volunteer in Miami, but then fast-tracked to now as associate director. When I came back home, because LA is home, we were in 2 sites, but through some miscommunication, we had lost kind of our grip in those sites. And even those 2 sites, we would have had a footprint through our cooking class of anywhere from 32 to 40 students per semester. So you multiply that and make it a little bit larger, a little less than 100. Now we have an imprint or a footprint and effectively work with, through our train-the-trainer model for Small Bites, as I talked about in particular, an annual footprint of about 20,000 students throughout LA County. So to go from less than 100 to 20,000, and that's been about 4 years. Yeah, 4 or 5 years, I guess I'm coming up on 5 years now. 20,000 students plus the teachers and the communities that they effectively operate in and work in or live in, and being part of that community has been a great success for us. And we've seen similar growth, or not similar because we kind of had hyper growth in LA, but we've seen growth across the nation in our other 13 markets. I think the success comes from that same challenge in that, to your point, how do you stay sustainable, right, long term? We've had great funders, and we still have a great development team that continues to get funds. So it's not like it's an immediate, it won't be a Common Threads, because there will be. But thinking long term and proactively thinking, trying to be able to get that support and get continued and growing support to be able to not only sustain the 20,000 annual reaches we get yearly here, but to be able to grow beyond that and really, strengthen and undergird that with, again, that support that's needed. So that's probably the success and challenge.
Congratulations, yes.
Oh, thank you.
Melissa.
I think our accomplishments have been that we've been able to take teens who have had no culinary experience whatsoever, no knowledge of hydroponics or growing in the soil, or health, wellness, and nutrition, perhaps, and in 12 weeks, turn them around so that they have a very conscious understanding of what this is, and that they have the confidence to sell their product at a pop-up farmer's market and hold on to the profits at the end. So we've created social entrepreneurs in 12 weeks. Our challenge is that we're in at LAUSD High School, and we're working, we're spinning and moving quickly, and LASD is moving hardly at all. And so if we could just get our program, a little slice of cake into the in-school program, where maybe we start off with mindful meditation in the morning, and then we work out into nutrition is the lunch, and they get 5 credits, that would be progress. So that's what we're working for.
You're working with adults too, this Cayenne, is that something that's with adults?
Actually, we're going to be working with Mayor Garcetti actually over the summer. He's asked us to take the cake program to 18 to 24-year-olds. So that's the next phase, and they've been incarcerated youth. And we're
But not
going
for
to be-
us here, right? Not for our age.
Not your.
Not yet, not
I
yet.
don't know, not yet.
That would be a great question. What would you be your 30-second elevator pitch to engage not just the audience here, but the audience is going to be watching this on the Digital Hollywood platform? Melissa?
How would I engage them?
Yeah, what would be your pitch to engage everybody who's here to get more involved and to kind of help, whether it's personally coming down and helping and volunteering or through financial support? What would be your, what would you say?
Yeah, no, that's a wonderful question, because I ask the community to come and visit us in the kitchen actually every Wednesday. So we have been visited by many, many different types of people. And what it does is it gives you a chance to chat with students. You become a sous chef with them at the table. You chat with them, you share what you've learned about your life. They can share their life with you. And, a lot goes on, while you're cooking and then while you break bread together and eat. So if you've ever wanted to, bone in on your culinary skills, come on down. We're there. We're going to be there tomorrow. It'll be our last Wednesday. And we actually have Apple Business coming to visit with us, and we have folks from insurance companies. And it's wonderful to get everybody together. The students learn so much. The mentors come in and learn so much. So please reach out to me. Come on down. You can learn health, wellness, nutrition, mindful meditation, stress management. You can participate with us in every aspect of it, or as little, as whatever you'd like to do. So we encourage you. I'll give you my number right after we're over here.
Okay, we have 5 minutes left. If you could just, Jason, if you could tell us.
James, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. So I think I would say this, Common Threads actually thrives and is successful because of partnership. Not just organization to organization, but there's a partnership with the community. There's a partnership with the students. There's a partnership with the 200 schools that we operate in throughout LA County. There's a partnership with the after-school component that allows us to do that. So we still need other partners. Volunteerism is, to your point, how we've been able to really, that's how you catch people. I was a volunteer, of course, in Miami in the cooking class. And once you start to work with, to your point, kids, you just fall in love with them. So that partnership of community, that partnership of the whole being greater than the individual is what Common Threads thrives off of. So if you have any inclination or any desire to work with students, the community, kids, especially in the space of culinary art, nutrition, health and wellness, by all means, reach out. You can find us on our website. You can just talk to me directly. But really continue to go deeper and embed ourselves in the communities and spaces that we work with through this lens of partnership and this idea of connectedness, that common threads. And that's where the name comes from, actually, the idea that food is a common thread to everybody. So if you go to commonthreads.com, you'll find a sewing class. If you go to commonthreads.org, you find us, right? The idea is that the reason we have so many so many lessons from around the world is because people are tied together by food. You see differences, but similarities are larger. So partnership, come be a partner with Common Threads.
Fantastic.
So I would say that big question that I asked earlier about how are we going to feed 9 billion people by 2050, I know that all of us, we should be concerned about that because we're one of those people. And join us in working towards making sure that enough people get fed, out of that 9 billion, that we don't have some of the attendant problems that go with food insecurity, which climate change, we've been addressing greenhouse gases, and our seed automatic watering kit, what it does in helping people monitor their water, maybe soon monitor their soil health, is going to go a long way towards feeding that number of people. Now, one of the things that I also mentioned, why it's key, is that if you have individuals that are interested in this and they think that they can't do anything, when you're doing something in your own site, you're actually, through this watering system, helping people at other sites. And you're able to not just monitor what you're doing, but look at what's going on in these other communities. So that's my pitch for working with us. And coming from the nonprofit world and moving into this sort of for-profit world, I'm learning that there's a pitch and then there's a pitch. In nonprofits, you're talking a lot about grants. In the for-profit world, you're talking about investment. So we welcome both because we have both a nonprofit and a for-profit. So I would say join us so that we can address this food insecurity on this global level, but also at the local level.
Thank you.
So in-house is also for-profit. Primarily right now, we're looking for, customers. We're looking for restaurants and chefs, any food service establishment, hotel, corporate campus, to, try us out, to grow food right on site and have it be as fresh as it can be. So that's the main thing. We're also looking for investment. So if you know anybody who owns a restaurant or wants to do some startup investing, please come talk to me.
Great.
To get involved with Community Healing Gardens, we have an IG and a Facebook. It's at Community Healing Gardens. I'd love everybody here to like us on both Facebook and Instagram. That's one way to get involved. Second way is we do activations with companies. So we do leadership days in the farm in Watts, and we can also do it on the streets of Venice. A couple of us already shared that we work with corporations. We just had Tom Shoes come out and do an activation with us, and we received a $10,000 grant because of our relationship with them and building trust. And that's what I think is really important, is the trust in the work that we're doing collaboratively to work together, as well as with each one of you. You can volunteer as an individual as well, and you can feel free to donate to what we're doing, either in Watts, Venice, or both. And if you have any ideas of how you can support any one of us, please see any one of us after our talk. Thank you.
Thank you so much. What a great panel. Really appreciate it. And thank you all for coming.